Now, having said that, I want to go ahead and turn it on over to my good friend Dom Landry.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me today, and see a couple familiar faces in here. Hopefully make some new connections as well. So I hate to jump in and not knowing where people stand. So how many people have, like, you can just raise your hands like if you have the video. How many people already have a business set up? They're already like rocking and rolling. So we got 3, 4. So we'll breeze through this like presentation really fast, and then I'll just open it up to questions. We can take up more time on the questions than me being a talking head. Do I have the ability to share screen? Can you guys see this? I guess just give me like a little head nod or a wink. Yeah, gotcha. All right, cool. So Common Ground, that's the company we're formed in Philadelphia in 2011. Actually, I got a typo on the secretary. I got to dock her pay. Founded in November 2011, but we went full time in 2012. So we've been doing this for a decade this November, full time since 2012, so about 9 years. And funny story, we actually didn't want to do this. We wanted to be we wanted to sell shoes online. And what happened was, like, we were trying to promote not only ourselves, but other entrepreneurs in the city through like events and networking series. And we just organized them. But along the way, we were helping those other companies get their ducks in a row. Because I worked for a firm that was doing the same thing, but for Fortune 500 companies. So it was kind of like what I was doing at night, I did during the day. And people were like, hey, how did you do that? Can you help us? And that's how we kind of got into the consulting, because everywhere we went, people wanted us to help them out. And we realized that they didn't have access to the information. It wasn't readily available. So we wanted to be more of an asset to the community and just provide those services. So we started in 2011 and been going strong since. Some of you may have heard these terms before. If they're brand new, we wrote the definitions up. But there's different types of formations you can have. Some of them, sole proprietor, we're just by default, that's people right now can sell lemonade on the street. So when you think about a company, you're thinking about 2 things: liability protection, if it has it or if it doesn't have it, and then tax protection or tax shelter, if it has it or if it doesn't have it. So at the bottom of the ladder, you have sole proprietor, no liability protection, no tax protection. So essentially, you're responsible for the activities of the business. You're also 100% responsible for the incomes or losses of the business. And what people get remiss is that if they become an LLC, that tax protection part changes. It doesn't. The LLC allows you to have liability protection, so legal protection in your state or where you're operating. But the IRS still will view you as a sole proprietor if you're a sole member, or as a partner if there are multiple members. So what that means is if the company makes money, you're gonna have to get that. You're gonna have to claim that income as your own, as a sole member, like a sole proprietor would. Or if me, Tanya, and John are in the company together in an LLC, there's 3 of us, we'll split the net income up, based on our ownership interest, and pay the taxes on the income that comes over to us. So if there's equally split and we made $10,000 net income, I'll have to claim 3,333. Tanya the same, John the same. And whether we touch the money or not, it's going to show up on our personal tax return on 1040. So LLCs by default are called pass-through structures on the tax side. So remember, on our 2-headed coin, liability protection and tax protection, the LLC doesn't by default provide tax protection. We're still going to be taxed as individuals unless we ask the IRS to change that status for us, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then you have like the corporation, which can be for-profit or it can be nonprofit. Corporation as a nonprofit is going to offer you the liability protection and also tax protection, because you're telling the IRS and the state that you're not going to take out profits as a stakeholder, as a shareholder in the company, you're going to leave it in so the company can give to other nonprofits or reinvest back into itself. Nonprofit corporations aren't tax exempt by default. So you then also have to file for your 501c3 or 501 status, whichever C you're going to be. Most popular is the 501c3 as a charity. So you could be a nonprofit corporation and not be tax exempt. But as the owner of that nonprofit corporation, you don't have to claim the income of the company like you would in an LLC, right? So we'll get more into details. We breeze through, but just touching these topics. On the for-profit side, your for-profit corporation can be taxed as a C-Corp or as an S-Corp. So C-Corp is, a lot of people misconstrue C-Corp with like size. It has nothing to do with size. It's all about intent on the tax side. So remember, we have a coin. Front of the coin is legal liability. So the C-Corp, the corporation is going to give you legal protection. The C-class, the C-Corp is going to give you tax shelter. So when people get mad at billionaires for not paying the taxes that they should be paying because of what they're worth, they're not paying those taxes because they haven't literally claimed or liquidated that money out of their companies. So their C-Corp is holding their shares, which is holding their wealth, and they may only pay themselves, a nominal fee as compared to what they actually are worth. So C-Corps give you tax protection and legal protection because they completely separate the owner, the shareholder, from the business's income. So my company can make $1 million. I don't have to claim it. And I can be working at Chick-fil-A for $10.25 and just pay the taxes on that if I wanted to, and leave the money in the company. Whereas an S-Corp is a tax election that you hear a lot now. S-Corp doesn't allow you the same shelter. What it does is it's still like a pass-through like LLC, but S-Corp is better known as like a split. So if we're talking about, my analogy I always use is Arnold Palmer. So you have lemonade and iced tea, you put it together. So Arnold Palmer, S-Corp is basically that in the tax realm. You have an LLC, which is a pass-through. You have a C-Corp, which allows you to pay yourself as an employee and take a dividend. So the S-Corp does both of those things. It passes through the net income to you, but it also allows you to pay yourself as an employee and designate what money you want taxed at a higher tax rate as an employee versus what you want to be taxed as like a pass-through from the net income. So to put that in perspective, in an LLC, if you make $50,000 and leave it in the company, the IRS is still going to tax you on the 50 as if it was a job, but you didn't pay Social Security, Medicare, net income tax to the federal government, state and local. But in an S-Corp, that 50,000 can be divided into 30,000 as an employee, which you're going to be paying Social Security, Medicare, net income tax, state and local, and then the other 20,000 can come to you as an owner, like a shareholder, which is taxed at a much lower tax rate. So S-Corp allows you to split the money into two taxable buckets, but it doesn't prevent you from being taxed. So it doesn't have the tax liability protection that a C-Corp has, but it gives you some tax flexibility that an LLC doesn't allow you to have, just being taxed as a regular pass-through LLC. So C-Corp, controlled choice, S-Corp, split, Arnold Palmer, if you're thirsty. One big thing to note on an LLC, one big thing to note with the LLC is that a lot of people think you can pay yourself as an employee in a single member LLC. You can't do that via the IRS, but because they're already assuming it's your money. So if you want to go on payroll and have like proof of income and you have an LLC, the thing that you would do is ask the IRS to change your tax class to an S-Corp or a C-Corp so that you can begin to split the money into different buckets. So LLC is purely a liability play, which we'll talk about again some more in a bit, just going over these terms.
Hey,
and I know there's going to be, yeah,
there's a question in the chat.
okay, cool. Let me slide over. Wait, got a little, hold on.
Can you be on payroll as a member of a multi-member LLC?
Yes. So when you're in a multi-member LLC, you can be on payroll. However, whatever's left over in net income on the net income is still going to pass through to you as an automatic distribution. So we had that issue in Common Ground from 2015 to about 2018, where I was on payroll, getting paid as an employee because it was a multi-member LLC. But our company, we don't take out our ownership share, we leave it in the business. So I was already paying earned income throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, I had to claim my percentage of the net income. So I would still have to owe, right? So in 2018, when the Trump administration changed the tax law and that tax reform that year, and they lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, we decided to switch over to C-Corp, which allowed me to not have to take on any additional income from what I was already making as an employee. So now I don't have to pay extra taxes because we have a profit that year, where I would have still in an LLC because I was still having to take that distribution. So you can pay yourself as an employee and a multi-member. It's just you're still going to take on that pass-through. It feels almost like an S Corp. However, the S Corp is going to have a lower tax rate on the pass-through. You're not going to pay that 30%. You're only going to be around 10 to 14 because it's like being a shareholder in the company. Oh, this is Tanya, right? In those things. Okay. And then that was the one question. Cool. Did that answer it for you? Did that? Cool. So next, and this is just kind of what I was talking about. It just summed it up. And I sent these to Tanya. She can send it over to you guys if you like. But the big thing to remember about the LLC or any of the companies is you're doing this thing called creating corporate veil. So a lot of people think that LLC is the only thing that has the liability protection, which isn't true. It's kind of like a diet corporation. So they're all borrowing from corporate protection, corporate veil. And another misconception is like, hey, if I form my company, I have this bulletproof vest on and now people can't sue me. That's also not true. So there's things that you have to do to maintain the corporate veil. And that's whether you're in a nonprofit corporation, an LLC, a corporation that's taxed as a C Corp, corporation that's taxed as an S Corp. And those things are set up a bank account that the company, that's for the company using its EIN, and of course, underneath its name. And so all the money you're receiving is to be made out to the company and put into that bank account first. And then like Michael asked, could you get that money as an employee or, take it out later? You can, but you also want to be careful of how you're moving the money out. So if you're an employee, it's beautiful because it's clearly like payroll and it's coming to you like once a week or once every other week or once a month. But if you go into the LLC's bank account or corporation's bank account and you just like take stuff out on a Tuesday, and then it's like Thursday, you want to take some more stuff out, or like you're just using the debit card willy-nilly, what you're actually doing is treating the company's bank account more like your own. And if there's ever some action taken against the company, the first thing they're going to do is audit the account and the books to see if you've pierced the corporate veil so they can name you in the action. So whether you're not nonprofit corporation, LLC, corporation, what you want to do is maintain separation of how you handle the money. So the business bank account, business expenses, revenue, always hits that. You're considered an expense, but you want to make yourself an expense that's going to be consistent. So like if you pay yourself every Friday or every other Friday, stay to that schedule and try not to fluctuate the amounts week over week over the frequency. So if you pay yourself $1,000, pay it 1,000. Don't be like, oh, 2,000 this week, 1,000 next week, 3,000 the week after that. It's not good accounting practice, but it's also going to look more like what they call commingling. So it doesn't look like it's structured. It looks like you're just going and taking out whatever you want to take out. Now you can give yourself an increase, but again, make sure that increase is based upon the fact that you can carry that increase consistently. So that it does look like it's an expense, almost like you're taking out a regularly scheduled distribution as opposed to commingling the funds. So corporate veil has a lot to do with where the money goes and how you guys treat the money. Also, having some other documents in place, like your operating agreement, if you're in an LLC, a charter and bylaws, if you're in like a nonprofit corporation or a corporation, and just showing that you've taken some due diligence. But the big thing, the big onus is on like, how is the money coming in and how is it leaving? If it looks clean and it's scheduled, then you're going to be good to go. If it looks sporadic and all over the place, it could open you up to some liability issues if there's an action taken against your company. So some big things about like filing in your state. The registered office, the registered address is not a business address. It's for process service mail. So like if somebody does take action against you or if the state needs to contact you, where's the best place for it to go? So they really don't ask for a business address, like a commercial space. You can use it if you have one, but the registered office is really just about if somebody sues you, where can the mail go so that you receive it? So that's strictly for like government mail and process service mail. So a lot of people use their lawyer or an accountant. Some people use their own address. As long as you're registered or a resident in the state, you can use your own address. But it doesn't have to be a commercial address. And these addresses don't have anything to do with your credit. So if you have your own address on the document, it's not going to affect your credit. It's not going to affect whether you can get a business line of credit or things like that. So these are some things that are kind of swimming around content-wise. But sole purpose is for the state to be able to contact you if they need to. The people that go on the articles aren't always the owners. So again, you can have your lawyer set up your LLC, your accountant set up your LLC, and your name not even be on the articles, but your name is in the operating agreement, which states the actual owners of the company, the members. So when you look at the original documents, it may not say the owner's name, but that's why the state wants you to have the operating agreement and the bank as well, so that you can say like, hey, I own 50% of the company. I'm the one that can go to the bank. The other members can't go to the bank. It's just me. All that stuff is said in the operating agreement. The articles, the initial paperwork for the corporation, nonprofit corporation, LLC, they don't necessarily state the owners. They can, but that's not what that line is for. That line is for the person that was there forming the company, which again, it could be an attorney, it could be an accountant that represents you, it could be a third-party firm. So just remember that business address isn't necessarily listed on the articles, and neither are the owners. So some financial institutions, some people may be giving out erroneous information. And some of you guys may just go on it, and it's fine to be on it. But if you see it without it, it doesn't mean that that person isn't part of the business, right?
Dom, there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
Marisol, you might want to unmute. I mean, it might be a little bit, if you can.
Yeah, that's a great question, Marisol. So income actually is important. So if you're an independent contractor, right, and you're getting, you're signing W-9s with different people and you got 1099s coming in, you're not paying into Social Security, you're not paying like into Medicare on a regular schedule like the IRS would like us to. So what a lot of us don't realize is when we work for a company, we're paying taxes every 2 weeks. We see it, but it doesn't register that we're doing that. And so at the end of the year, in February or March, when we say we're doing our taxes, you've already paid. It's just now you're reconciling if you need to owe any more because you didn't claim any other money. So if you had a W-2 and you're doing your 1040, you've already set the IRS straight, they're cool, and then you're gonna get your money back that you overpaid, which is a refund. So when we get our tax refund, they're just giving us a check back for stuff that we already paid for. But if you're an independent contractor and you're not, the company you're contracting with isn't paying for you, now you're in a situation where you're you have to remit yourself, and you can do that every 3 months, quarterly. You can do that every 2 weeks if you wanted to, if you wanted that frequently. The IRS just wants you to submit. If you don't and you wait to the end of the year, you can do that, but they're going to hit you with a small penalty. So what happens is when you make a certain amount of money, you get put into different tax brackets, right? So if you're an independent contractor and you only made 30,000 and Maricel made 100,000, we're not going to pay the same amount in taxes. Maricel's going to pay way more than me, right? And so if you're going to form an LLC because you're trying to consolidate all these payments, like all these like contracts, the LLC might not be the best structure for you because you're still going to owe the same amount of money and you're still taking out the same deductions. A corporation, whether C or S, could help you because now you can actually run what you want to run through payroll and pay that on a frequency, on a basis, right? If you're a sole proprietor, if you're a sole member and you want to like, hey, I want to be on payroll, you can run it through payroll and separate what you want to leave in the company out. So you're either paying a lower tax amount on it or not having to pay taxes on it at all and letting the company pay the taxes for it. So income does play a part. It also plays a part on the other side. So let's say somebody is getting disability and they claim that they can't work. An LLC will be detrimental to that because now you're actually telling IRS that you're self-employed and you have been working. So that could affect your disability payments. So a corporation would be a better version for you because again, you can stay underneath your earned income threshold. Like some disability people can only make up to like 12,000 a year. So they can stop right there, still get the disability, even though the company is making more money. So income plays a role. Your regular deductions, like if you have kids, plays a role. In New York, for example, a lot of people live in income adjusted housing. So like they've been grandfathered into like the rent that they've always paid because their income is a certain amount, but their neighbors may be paying like the market value. So if their income goes up, so would their rent. So yeah, that's a really good question. Like understanding like where you are in the tax structure and understanding like what you're claiming as deductions, or in some people's cases that allows them to get like insurance or disability checks, does play a part in like how you should file your businesses. So great question.
And can I
If
follow
you
up with
are,
another question with that?
yeah, I just like one last point because I just saw she had like a second part to that. So if you're trying to save, the safe number is around like 30%. So that's like state, federal, and local all wrapped in, including your like Social Security, Medicare. So about a third is like a safe number. If you don't, the IRS is funny, they don't give you an exact number. So usually people fall in the 30% range, but if you get higher into like the higher 5 figures into the 6 figures, you're going to be closer to 40. So, but yeah, the other person can ask the question too. Sorry.
Oh, it's still me, Maricel.
Oh, hey,
I
Marisa.
Hi. So one of the things I do struggle locating myself in this is like, well, even if I'm sole proprietor at the moment, because I'm still figuring this out because there's so many variables all the time.
Mhm.
Um, should I still have like a separate bank account for that? I mean, I usually use the system like for PayPal because then that's way I can just like, hey, this is one place where the business money is coming in and like you can track all that movement.
Correct. Yeah. So as a sole proprietor, the there's no like there's no shield. So whether it's this bank account or another one, you're liable for it. Now the thing is, do you do business as Maricela? Or do you do it as like another name?
I use it as Maricel Translates because that's the business name I would like to register and be
Yeah.
known for. But most of everything is done directly to me just as my name.
So yeah, if you wanted to go by Maricel Translates and still be a sole proprietor, you would form what they call a fictitious name,
Mm,
MPA. And so that allows you to like receive a check as Maricel Translates, and it allows you to open up a bank account for Maricel Translates that's separate
okay.
from like Maricel Villarreal. And
Mhm,
then that way you can see like, hey, these checks go here. This may be like if you have a regular job, you're getting your W-2 checks here. You're still gonna be taxed on the income as Maricel, but at least now you have the ability to have checks written to you to the company name, which
mhm.
is a fictitious name, and still be a sole proprietor. So, in the industry that you're in, I'm not sure for whom you're translating, but let's say it was a very important business negotiation between Colombia company and a company here in the United States, and you mistranslated and you cost them like $200,000.
Yeah,
There's some liability in that. I don't know if that's like
exactly.
where it is, but depending on for whom you're translating, the liability can either be like very, very small or big. So that would depend. That would be the difference between you like setting up an LLC to protect yourself
Mm-hmm.
versus just being a sole proprietor. So if it's like business to business and these are negotiations and you're like, hey, I got to make sure these people know what's going on so they can make the right business deal, then I would probably just like get the LLC so you're protecting yourself liability wise, but you'll still be paying taxes as a sole proprietor.
Awesome. Thank you.
Nah, thank you. That was a great question. A lot of people don't ask that question, but it's like very important to think about as you're making your company. Was there any other questions about that? I know I went through a lot of stuff, so I'll kind of take like a pause here to see if anybody else has any other questions.
Sure, I've got a question. Maybe I'll just speak.
Yeah.
You hear me okay? And this maybe this things we're going to get to in a bit, but another question about putting money into, say, an LLC or frankly, or a C-Corp to start to get things going. And then how do you, I mean, I guess in time, of course, you define, say the corporation loses money, as a startup often does for a little while, and you accordingly declare losses and things like that. Do you just declare whatever initial valuation is however much money you put into it to begin with, or how does that? How does all that putting money in stuff go? I guess we should leave it at that. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. You guys are sharp, man. I gotta tune into this every week. So when you form your business, whether it's an LLC or a corporation, you're gonna have you can declare initial investment in the company. So like, say you and I get into a company, there's going to be capital investment that we can put on the operating agreement and sign a note. I say, hey, we're both going to put in 10,000, right? So in the eyes of the IRS, we can declare that as a loss if we put it in and like we just spent it and it just went away. As in an LLC is going to be a loss automatically because that was like startup capital. In a C-Corp, you can do the same thing. However, you got to be careful because it could be that you bought the shares with that, right? And so the shares that you bought don't necessarily go away, just the value of them depreciates, but you can't like you can't write off like shares that get lower. So if you use the money to like buy a product in a corporation, like specifically, and it wasn't attached to like owning a share, then there's like you can write that off as an initial investment. But like if I buy a stock in Apple right now, like I bought ownership in it, so I'm gonna be it can appreciate or it can depreciate. I just bought like the percent. I bought the owning responsibility of the company. So you just have to be careful of how you like list it and what its initial usage is for when it's a C-Corp. But in an LLC, it's your money that the IRS is tracking your money anyway from the LLC back to you. So if you put the money in, you're not buying pieces of the company like shares. You're putting in capital as a member, and then the money that comes back either as profit or a loss, it just passes through to the company. So in a C-Corp, the company is going to claim the losses, but they don't always translate to the shareholders, if that makes sense. Was that convoluted, or did it clear it up a little bit?
Yeah, I guess it gave me at least a start of that. I guess so if I was doing an LLC, I'll just do something simpler, and I put money into that right away. I can declare that as far as personally goes as a loss right away as I put the money in.
Yeah, if you didn't take it back out as a distribution, or if the company wasn't profitable, right? So if you put 10,000 into an LLC and you use that 10,000 to purchase goods, equipment, things like that, and you didn't make any money, then it's going to be a loss of 10,000. If you made 5,000 back, the company made 5,000 back, so there's 5,000 left in the there's 5,000 in the bank account, right? Then you're going to claim a loss of $5,000 because the company actually made money. It just didn't make all of your money back. So
Mhm.
LLC is basically your tax return, right?
Right.
You're going to claim the profits and losses. A C Corp is separate. So if you put money into a C Corp, it's better to almost loan the money to a C Corp, right? Write a term loan and say, hey, I'm lending this money to this corporation. It's going to have to pay me back like at 1 or 2%. Then that's a better way to claim a loss if you're dealing with the C Corp than to put money into a C Corp as an initial investment, because you're really buying like shares and ownership, and the company's going to do its own profits and losses separate from you. So it's just, there's a small idiosyncrasy in how companies can claim. So an LLC is your tax return. It's just a pass through. The
Right.
C Corp has its own return. So it's almost better to just like write it as a loan to the company as opposed to just like an investment. Because the company will claim the losses if it didn't make any money, where you wouldn't be able to pass it through.
All right. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Is it is it good, or is it still like some murkiness to it?
I'm sure, there'll be more nuances I'll have to know in the future, but this is
Yeah,
a good start. Thanks.
yeah, that it's you can definitely do it on the C Corp. You're just gonna have to claim it specifically for the usage, right? And so there's a little bit more to do on a C Corp than it is in the LLC, because the IRS is automatically saying it's your money anyway. So an LLC is a lot easier to kind of write off those initial investments.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no problem. So this is just a little, so if you did it, this is just like a little screen for like people that have filed with us. So we're very diligent in making sure you guys get all the documents, and just answering any questions you guys have like going forward. So whether it be with payroll, like you mentioned, like tax questions like that, Bruce, and if you put your emails in the chat, I can connect you guys with like other professionals that we work with, like Rose Brown, who's an accountant, Jay Borowski, who's an attorney. So if you guys want to get more in depth on like legal or tax, I can just put your emails in the chat and we can connect you with people that work with this to kind of walk you through these idiosyncrasies, because there's a lot of nuances, especially in the tax code, and what's legitimate and what's not legitimate. But that's what we are. At CGM, we're just like a great resource, or we want to be a great resource, I should say. So one of the things people do after they form is they're looking to trademark, which isn't actually like the term. The term is like to register the mark, but the vernacular is like to use the term trademark. So what's a trademark? A trademark is the name or image associated with the product. So without having even being registered, you guys probably already have a trademark, or a service mark. Somebody Sell Translates is a service mark, even though she hasn't done anything with the USPTO. She's already has a service mark because she probably markets that. She puts it on a business card. She's promoting it. So, and the trademark is it's the same thing, but on a product. So on a bottle of water, on shoes, things of that nature. Protecting the mark is the action of registering it with the United States Patent and Trademark Office federally, or with your state locally. So you can register a mark in PA, but it's only going to have that right protection in PA. So if you want it to be federal, then you'll go United States Patent and Trademark Office. A trademark isn't to be confused with a patent, which is like a protection of an invention or technology that enhances something that's already in existence. So when you have a technology or an item that's new, you can patent it. The brand that packages and sells that item is going to be trademarked. So Apple is the trademark, right? The iPhone will get the patent. Does that make sense? Like the actual technology of the iPhone and the design would get the design patent. The brand Apple that sells the phone would register for the trademark. And even the term iPhone in and of itself would probably register for a trademark because it's a brand name associated with the product. Okay. How much does it cost to register with the United States Patent and Trademark Office? So right now it charges $250 per mark. So remember, the mark is the name, like Coca-Cola, or the image. So Coca-Cola can just be Coca-Cola, or it can be the cursive, the script image of the name. And it's going to charge $250 for each of them. And then they're really petty, super petty. So they only allow you to register in one class at a time for $250. So for example, if you're selling clothes, that's 025. That's going to be $250 for the name Nike and $250 in the class for clothes 025. If Nike also sells duffel bags and wants to protect their name in that class, 018, that same application is now going to be $500 to the USPTO because Nike's listed 2 classes, even though it's only been 1 application. So the USPTO is really petty. They want their money and they want it on time. And so they really make it hard for you to try to get universal protection. It costs a lot of money if you're trying to like protect universally. So just be aware when you're trying to get those protections, you understand what's like most important, most pertinent. And there are some, just like anything, there are some workarounds, just like we talked about with the initial investment play with Bruce. There are some workarounds on the trademark side too, and trying to get more things protected for the same 250. But we'll touch on that in a bit. And then if you guys, need to contact us afterwards, after this call, there's our website, there's our phone number as well. We have like free consultations all the time. And I'll put my email in the chat too, so you guys should shoot me an email anytime.
So Dom, I have a question about
Yeah.
the trademark. Because I have one of my founders has a T, right? And so while she's not going to need the intellectual property of a proprietary blend per se,
Mhm.
in trademarking, I'm wondering what levels of trademarking, or are there levels to trademarking her process, or not necessarily patented, the
Yeah.
different names of each blend, I guess is what I'm saying, right? So there's the company name, which is Rose Gold Tea, and then there are the different brands of blends underneath that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so she can trademark the blend names.
Okay, she can.
So
Okay.
Rose Gold Crush, because she has like a
Okay.
little orange in there, a little cayenne, right? A little
Mm-hmm.
cinnamon. I don't even know if that's gonna taste good, but that's what we So the Rose Gold Crush, she can trademark, but she's not gonna be able to copyright the ingredients though.
Okay,
So like
right. Mm-hmm.
she, what I mean, she didn't just pop up with this new herb that nobody heard of, right, that
Right.
nobody uses. So the ingredients, not protection, not so much, but the brand name that
Okay.
the actual flavor, she can protect.
Okay. Okay.
So funny story, we had a client that has a restaurant. This is 2016. Mike Jarrett from Fox 29 comes and does an interview with the restaurateur, grand opening. There all day, doesn't look at the menu, doesn't show anything on the menu, just the process, people coming in, eating, interview the restaurateur. That was a Wednesday. Friday, she gets a letter in the mail from Chickies and Pete's because they went to the website and looked at the menu and saw that she had crab fries on the menu. And they're like, hey, we have, this is a registered mark for us, so you got to take crab fries off your menu in 72 hours, or we're going to come and, try to get back royalties from you for using like a registered mark. So people put
Wow.
obey on fries all the time.
Yes.
Don't you dare.
Don't.
You dare.
Wow, that's it. So Dom, did she have to take that item off the menu, or did she just have to rename it?
I don't know if anybody works for Chickies and Pete's on this phone call, so I don't know if she took it off or didn't take it off.
Because that's really interesting. Like,
yeah, it came
because
quick
I've
too,
had
like 2
crab
days
pies.
later.
I've had crab pies other places. Let me just
Other
say that.
places. Yeah. But what happened was because, and so we tell people all the time, like, look, so there's certain businesses you never see on the news, or you never see advertisements for. You never see them. You never see corner stores on the news. You never see laundromats on the news. Like, you never see like these people saying, "Hey, look at me," because it probably not reporting all the stuff they need to report, probably not doing all the things they need to do. So they try to keep a very low profile. So the minute you step out and you do something like in press, or you try to apply for something, that just puts you in a microscope. And so because she was on TV and it was a big segment, all they had to do, the lawyers are just like, oh, cool, let's just check them out. And, because Chickies and Pete's is paying them anyway. So,
Right.
The thing that we tell people all the time is like, hey, if your stuff isn't in a row, the ducks aren't in order, you probably want to be lower profile, right? Because if you're on, there was a restaurateur in Philly a couple years ago that was throwing like proms for people, but she was also on SSI, and then it just brought like a federal tax investigation on it, right? And so it's like, because she was on the news spending all this money on proms, it's like, okay, somebody locally at the IRS department is like, well, let's check it out.
And she's lowered her profile since that happened too.
Mike could have put
Mike put the article in there about the about the Chicky and Pete's crab fries.
I like these guys. I like this team.
Yeah, that's wow, that's interesting. That's heavy.
Oh yeah. So but this is the presentation. So yeah, let's open up the floor to discussion and chats, and and if anybody has any questions, more than happy to.
Let's get it.
Hi, it's Maricel again. Hi. It's just so cool. Like, there's a lot going on, but it's like you want to make sure you make the right decisions, because then you don't want to be in trouble with nobody. And I like that you make the difference of like the trademark and the service mark, because I wouldn't have not known. So then because I offer services, I would have to register Maricel Translates as a service mark, correct?
Yeah, it's done by default. People just don't know it. So the way they break up the classes is class 001 to like class 034 are products. So if I sell seasoning, if I sell crab fries, right? If I sell t-shirts, I'm gonna be in the lower classes. 035 to I think 045 is the last class, is going to be services. So you're going to type in, hey, I do translation, and it's going to bring up probably class 044 for personal services. You don't know that it's that. It's just like that's where it's going to put you, and then it's going to be a service mark, right, by default. So when you guys see people saying like, here's my name, my logo, and you see the TM next to it, it doesn't mean that they actually have it protected. They're just like stating the obvious. It's a trademark, right? So like the TM doesn't mean anything other than what it is. Likewise, if you saw somebody with the logo or a name and had the SM next to it, they're just stating that they're a service mark. They offer a service, but they don't. It's not necessarily protected by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The circle with the R. So if you have like a bottle of water next to you, you'll see like the R next to the little name. That means it was registered. So that everybody gets the same R. It's just like you're either going to be in a service class or a trade class, basically.
And do these service marks have to be like, to get the protections for it, it has to be done under the USPTO, or is that something you can still do just solely with like the federally or like with the state?
Yeah, so the USPTO is the federal government, United States Patent and Trademark Office. So every country has their own trademark office. And ours is the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So they're going to give you like federal protection. In some cases, some international protection too. So meaning somebody selling another country, let's say it's a company actually called Mighty Cell Translates, and they're trying to bring that service here. If you have it registered already, they'd have to change their name. you know, if they wanted to register the mark. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's our version of our federal trademark protection is through the United States Patent and Trademark Office.
Mm-hmm.
So Don, what should I have now on Mom Your Business? Should we be a TM now? I never put anything on the logo.
No, you are, man. You registered.
I'm legit.
Put that circle with the R in it. We ain't playing with them. Shoot. Let it know. Let it be known.
I'm legit. Yes.
TM, SM, FM, AM,
Yeah.
no matter. We are.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's when you get it registered, you're an R.
Okay.
Hey, quick questions. Is there any purpose to putting a TM mark on something? I mean, that doesn't give you any kind of legal protection, does it?
No, so it's usually like a fake out. So when people see it, they're like, oh, they have a trademark, and then they kind of back away. But it just signifies that that's a mark that's going to go on a product. So yeah, usually when people see it, it scares them. It's like just enough of a shotgun to get people to back up. But that mark hasn't been officially registered yet with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So you probably have seen on documents the C with the circle in it as well. So copyright, that's a little bit more lenient, right? So we all have intrinsic copyright protections when we produce something and then distribute it. So like if I send an email, if I send a PDF or a PowerPoint, there's going to be a timestamp on that. There's going to be some type of acknowledgement that it was given from me to somebody else. And if that somebody else like completely copies the whole thing and tries to take it, I have like some intrinsic copyright protection. So you probably, when you go to websites or see documents, you probably see somebody put like 2020, C in a circle 2021, their name and their business name. So copyright is a lot more informal. Like you can pretty much just create the copyright protection by distributing the product. There is a copyright office. You can pay for a copyright. It's pretty cheap. It's like $50. But all it does is just like file it in the Library of Congress over there, the copyright library, and makes it like public record that you filed it. But it adds nominal protection to what you already would have had protected anyway. So copyrights are more works of art. So literature, songs, pictures, photos that have been taken. Those are going to be copyright protected. And you can do that by like putting them in one portfolio and kind of just publishing it. So
Dom, I have another question. And you kind of talked about it, you alluded to it earlier, as far as changing your business structure. When, what are some other examples of when you should change your business structure if you're an LLC over to an S-Corp or, and can you as a nonprofit change from a nonprofit to a for-profit? That was another question.
That's a really good question. So I'll answer the first one first. The LLC switch to an S-Corp or a C-Corp is usually dependent upon like the income coming in. And then like that person or people saying like, hey, we don't want this pass through. We don't want to just get all this as like pass through. There's going to be taxes earned income. So usually you start to see like some real damage at like net positive 5 figures. So like $10,000 net profit. If it's a sole member, you're probably going to be around like $3,000. You know what I mean? If you're multi-member, like 3 people, that's going to get chopped down and like, again, a third a piece. So still not that bad, but it's still like, if I've already paid taxes, like why do I got to go back in and pay another third, right? So usually when you get up above the 5 figures, into the 5 figures, it starts to become more of a reality. Number one, because your company can afford to pay you on payroll. So like when you're making that type of money, the company can probably pay you as an employee. And then, so that's another thing too, like, hey, now you want to be able to get earned proof of income because you're trying to get a car, you're trying to get a house.
Right.
trying to improve your credit score, get bigger lines, get bigger amounts of lines of credit, because now you can say, hey, I make such and such as an employee. So all those things kind of tie into the decision to switch from LLC to an S Corp tax election. So you're still going to be an LLC in your state. It's just that the IRS won't tax you that way. They'll tax you as an S Corp or a C Corp. Now, I haven't come across an instance where you would want to not be a nonprofit and kind of switch over to a C Corp. I guess the only instance that would be like if the business model was just so good that you wanted to have people buy in and have shares of it.
Okay.
Then you would make the switch.
Okay.
But as far as like tax wise, it wouldn't really make sense because you're already, and either way, in a C Corp or a nonprofit, you're going to be exempt from the taxes anyway. The only thing that happens in the nonprofit is you're saying, hey, if the company's profitable, I'm choosing not to take profits out. But you can be an employee of the company and make the money.
Right. Okay.
So that's why I was saying like the shareholder thing comes into play, because if somebody's like, hey, I want to invest in this, I want to be a shareholder, and they want to pull like their equity out as a dividend, then that would be like the reason to convert from a C Corp. I mean, from a nonprofit to a C Corp. But other than that, most people make a nonprofit on purpose to avoid taxation. So
yeah. Okay. Because you can always, create another entity to go alongside that nonprofit.
Exactly, and that's probably like the more amicable thing to do, because it's going to be quicker for you, probably a lot less expensive, and it's going to just keep your books pretty clean. So yeah, that's usually what happens. People make a sister company that'll take the for-profit burden.
Any more questions for Dom? This is good stuff. No more questions? Dom, you're pretty thorough.
Well, they told me at St. Joe's, man, if you in the presentation and they don't have any more questions, you did a good job. So, either that or you were boring. So I'll take the good job.
I think you're very thorough. And again, I think, we have some businesses that are already, in their structure, and some, we got a small group tonight too. So no more questions for Dom before I release them?
Oh yeah, don't release me just yet. I'm gonna copy and paste some of these the emails over.
Okay.
And I'm emailing Mr. Warner and Rose now. So just like you guys can chat. I'll just be like kind of over here just organizing these emails.
I actually have one question for you.
Sure.
So I used to have an S Corp, and I ran into some trouble with that because a company that was looking at investing was also an S Corp, and an S Corp can't invest in an S Corp.
Right.
So I no longer have that company. I have an LLC now, but with the LLC, are there any other things like that I'm going to run into or possibly run into, like another LLC can't invest, or are there any stipulations?
Oh man, you guys are a good group, man. I like this. So S Corp. So here's my take on S Corp, and don't it's not an A to Z Bible take. It's just from the S Corp is really only effective at its most optimum when you get commission, and you get a lot of commission, and you're like trying to make payroll. You're trying to get proof of income. So like real estate agents, people that work in nail salons or hair salons that get paid a commission because like the owner of the salon doesn't pay them as an employee, but they may have set up their own like book, their own liability, and they're getting this like pass-through income, and they need to like get a paycheck. So S Corps have a very, very limited usage. By definition with the IRS, like you can only have 100 people in an S Corp. They all have to be in the United States. Like you said, S Corps can't own other S Corps or C Corps. Like they're very like tight with that. LLCs don't have any of those restrictions. You can have as many members as you want. A corporation can invest in an LLC. So you'll probably find that a corporation would invest in an LLC, not a person if they're smart, because the person is just going to get hit with like earned income tax, like self-employment tax. So LLCs are really, really free, really, really open. Their sole purpose was really just to limit the liability. Other than that, you're just acting as like yourself. So S corps, they're like the hot person on the block right now. Everybody's like talking about them. Just came around, but they really pigeonhole you more than they like help, because they're not really made as investment vehicles. They're not made to grow things. They're really made for, hey, so 3 years ago, the tax rate was 35% in the corporation. So like people were like, I ain't paying 30, I'm not gonna have my corporation pay 35%. And I still have to pay earned income tax. So if you're in a situation in a pickle where your company is pretty profitable and you don't want to pay like through the nose on self-employment, but you also didn't want to pay through the nose on corporate tax, the S Corp was like a great solution for you, because it allowed you to pay yourself as an employee. So block out this money that you want taxed at your income level, and then you're going to get the pass through of the net income to you as an automatic dividend. So it was almost like best of both worlds when the corporate tax rate was so high, because people that didn't want to pay that 35%, they could just be an S Corp, kind of fly under the radar in between the two, and just take on the pass through the net income and kind of make more deductions off of that. So it was really made for a niche, like business, niche service, niche like limited amount of companies that can really take advantage of that. But now, since it's such a hot topic, people like jump on it. But LLCs, they don't really have any restrictions. Some states limit the amount of members, but PA isn't one of those states. So that's about it. You just run into like how many members can be in it. C-Corps, likewise, C-Corps are pretty open about how money can come in, who can invest in it, how many members they can be. The only restriction they have is like you have to be super, super disciplined on how you take the money out. Because the whole point of the C-Corp is you don't want to pay taxes on the money you don't want to pay taxes on. Did that help a lot? Or
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Any more questions? Comments?
What kind of, is this like through a school? Is it just like you guys just met at Starbucks one day and
Dom, why you want to make me laugh? This is
I was
the
like-
university. This is through the University Science Center. You read my
nice.
emails, man. When I ask you to do stuff, man.
I read it, but what had happened was
So this is a program through the University Science Center called OnRamp. It is a 8-week accelerator program for idea stage businesses. So every week there's been a different topic. We've done problem identification, we've done branding, we've done the MVP,
Nice.
we've done operations and business structure today. We'll do team building, we'll do the financing, and then we'll get into the pitch deck and creating the pitch deck for a chance to win some money. So that's where we at.
Oh, that's amazing. You guys are really awesome, man. And I really appreciate, the time and, the questions you guys asked. So it was dope. You guys have a great group, and Tanya, and she's the bomb. So let's keep it rolling.
Yeah. So, yep. So this has been a good session. I mean, you answered some questions, for me personally. Even though I hit you up when I'm in need. So this is always, this is always good. So.
Did you tell them? Did you tell them what happened the last time, or no? You didn't.
No, I didn't. You want to tell my story? Tell my story.
I don't want to tell it. I think you can tell it. You can tell it.
So when we were filing for our nonprofit, it was just an absolute nightmare. We actually got turned down the first time, and then I went, and that was another person did that. When I went back, I had Dom do it, and then the same error that was identified for the denial the first time came up again, and Dom really dug deep to figure out what it was, and it was the structure of our corporation was listed as having members when we did not have any, right, Dom? That's
Yeah.
basically what it was.
Yeah, the EIN was made that way, and so
Yeah.
they just needed proof that there was some conversion on how the company was organized.
Hmm.
So like she said, when she was in need, she came back home. So,
In tears, ready to throw in the towel. The heck with this.
no.
And that was that was at the start of the pandemic, I guess, when we first started going through that process, or in the middle of it, because it was probably in 2020, and then we ended up getting it, I think, in February of this year was when it was finally actually done. So the trademark process was a lot smoother than the 501c3 part. The trademark part was a lot simpler, a lot more fun. So
Dom, before you leave, it looks like we have another question from
Okay,
Donna. Did you raise your hand?
Donna?
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm a fan of Dom. I know Dom, he has helped me through a ton of stuff. I have a million ideas, or I've had a million ideas. And I go to him and I'm like, look, I'm trying to X, Y, and Z. And how can I do this? And he's really patient, because it's a lot. Like, do you need to do this to do that? And bop, and you shouldn't file as that because, and
yeah.
I was trying to make a cartoon, and he actually met with me one night and tried to, like, in the evening at his what is it called? CGM headquarters. I don't know the address, but he actually sat with me and tried to help me make the magazine pages for they're thorough, and they really try to make sure you get what you need done. So if you need help with that stuff, and they're affordable, and this is coming from someone who's frugal, so
ditto. I echo that. Dom, have you guys been hearing anything about, like, have people had to reach out to you relative to this NFTs and that kind of stuff? Like, what kind of role have you guys been playing in the NFT space?
Nothing yet so far.
Okay.
I think it's still a little
new,
still a little early phase.
Yeah.
And then but I know there's like a company there was like an NFT art gallery that just opened up.
Yep, they're on Girard Avenue. Yep.
Yeah, they're moving to Fishtown, but that'd be interesting to see. I mean, NFTs, they can have a lot of value in them.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much content, so much information coming out right now. You got to be abreast, and to be a consultant at this point, you gotta read, because people are coming with the info, they're coming with questions, and you got to be on your game, because like they'll know more than you coming in, but they'll have like 1,000 questions. You'd be like, hold up, I think my mom calling me because I had one more question. I think Talia Sophia, what was the mark that you looked up that was hit with the common refusal?
So my business is called Seven Squad.
Oh, your audio is real bad, Talia. Are you able to put it in the chat? Because your audio is pretty bad. Okay, she said 1 second.
I just wanted to tell you, for businesses where you meet with people, one thing that I saw about the NFT space is what Gary Vee did with VeeFriends, where each token is worth a certain interaction or amount of time. And that's how you can get into that if you want to get into NFTs or crypto space as a consultant. So that was something that was dope. Gary Vee, VeeFriends. Look up how that works.
Yeah, Gary Vee. Dom know Gary Vee. He's a follower of these icons.
The doodles are literally like, if you look at them, I'm like, you're paying for this? You'll pay like they'll be like 5 Ether or whatever for just a little sketch of a bumblebee, and it's like you get maybe 30 minutes of conversation for that much money, and it's like. So I wouldn't say that amount, maybe do a lower offering because he's ridiculous, but it's a way to start earning crypto and having people familiar with your brand in that space.
That's nice.
It's a new frontier, but it's Something always coming off on around the horizon. Yeah, I wanted to see
Sophia,
what
did you?
Celia was gonna say about her mark, but while she's doing that, so a lot of people think the only refusal is because somebody else has the name, which isn't the case. There's like a ton of refusals. There's geographic refusals. So in Philadelphia, if you're coming from Philadelphia, the USPTO will refuse it if you put Philly in the name, right? Because it's germane. So you have to disclaim it. There's like slogan refusals because it's too common. So Cardi B couldn't trademark occur, OKURR, because it just really means okay. So they hit her with like a vernacular, a slogan refusal. What are some other interesting refusals? Like we said, like too common of a phrase. That was like the Cardi B. So if it's germane to the subject, so like I can't trademark blue jeans if I'm selling clothes, but I could trademark blue jeans if I sold soup, right? So it's based on like what you sell. If it's too germane to that industry, they'll say it's a description, so you can get a descriptive refusal. So there's a ton of refusals. The most popular one is like, hey, that other person has my name, like the Spider-Man meme, so to speak. But you can get hit with different types of refusals. So USPTO process is, if you have the time and you're just like that type of person, it is very cool to kind of like look at the different applications because it's all public and see who got refused for what, and what happened. And you can learn it. It's going to take some time to get accustomed to like all the different things, but if you have the time, it is interesting. When I'm doing searches, I always find like interesting refusals, or the fact that certain people try to apply for things and I was like, oh wow, they paid $50,000 and didn't get it off this, like something that I would have told them they wouldn't have been able to get anyway, but the lawyer didn't care. So Talia, did you send it? Did you say what
Yeah,
the name
can you
was?
guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, my AirPods are always worse. So I actually did the research like you were saying, and I was reading all the applications and it was funny. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that it's all public. So my company is called STEMinist Squad. So like STEM, like science, technology, engineering, math, and then the last part of feminist. So STEMinist, and then Squad. And there was this woman really like crazy, actually in Philadelphia, who applied for just to trademark STEMinist. And I guess, I don't know how to say it, those people, they declined her because it was too common. And then someone told me that I probably would just get declined because I'm just adding an extra word, kind of like how you were saying, adding Philadelphia, like I'm just adding Squad. So that one, she abandoned it because they asked for like more information. So she just kind of
This is trade secret, y'all. I can't tell nobody how to tap in like this.
That's right. What goes on in OnRamp stays in OnRamp.
Merely descriptive. Interesting.
Yeah, so it kind of sucks, and I don't want to change my name. So I have to think of something clever. I don't know.
But what do you use? What product or service are you using it for?
So basically I'm trying to close the gender gap by getting more women in STEM hired.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How long have you been using it?
Probably like 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah, and the girl who applied for the same thing, she's just trying to sell clothes. So it's not a service mark. She just applied for whatever to sell clothes, I think.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting when you go and dive deep through this stuff.
I nerd out on it all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dom loves this. He loves
like all of the attachments are just like different clothing with the word feminist on it. I already looked. So like, do you think that there's like a way around something like that, or they're just gonna like, is it gonna be like a waste of my time to like try? Or like,
there's always a way around it. Somebody mark. So they got likely the confusion. So the issue, the only problem with the USPTO is that it's super subjective. So like this application got likelihood of confusion, but they didn't get merely descriptive. Right. So this person had the same name, but they got issued a different refusal than the other person.
Yeah.
And then they actually wound up getting approved because this is what this means. But then they didn't submit a specimen, so they wound up abandoning it later on.
Which
So-
works out for me, so.
Right. So they did it in 18 and 25. So 18. Oh, we didn't plan this, y'all. I didn't pay her to do the same class we talked about in this course. But they did it in 025 and 18. So backpacks and clothes, like we talked about with the Nike example. So she actually got approved to go forward. I'm assuming this is she, I'm sorry. Sean Treese. Yeah. But she didn't have a specimen, so she filed 1B, meaning I don't have proof that I'm selling it now, but I promise I'll give you proof later. She never gave the proof later, so they abandoned it. So that's the only thing I hate about doing trademarks or doing registrations, is because it literally depends on whose desk it falls on. And like if their girlfriend or boyfriend just broke up with them, is it 9 o'clock at night when they're reading it? Did they just read another like 1,000 other applications that were like crazy and they're just like, to hell with this?
So what's 1A?
1A means they had the specimen.
Okay.
So they had like a shirt with a tag that said STEMinist on it.
Mhm.
And they were able to show that at the time of applying. So this person got refused because they're merely descriptive, which probably they could have fought, because STEMinist doesn't have anything to do with apparel, right? So it's not like they were describing a person. They use this for an article of clothing. So that could have been the argument that they posed. Probably a better refusal would have been like, it's too jargony because other people use STEMinist for clothes. That probably would have been from the attorney standpoint, there probably would have been a more succinct way to refuse it, because they did a Google search and saw like 20 other people were using it. And so it's not distinctive to this person for this particular product. But they all, like, it's supposed to be the law and it's supposed to be objective, but it comes down to their interpretation of it and like what they feel like that day. And they just, when she got her mind around like refusing it, she just kept refusing it until it was abandoned. So for you in another class as a service, introducing the word squad, you probably do have a better chance of getting approved because of the second word. So squad doesn't have a germane connotation to certain things. So it's not like lessons, the word lessons, or like the word like seminar. So STEMinist squad would be distinctive to you because you've added the squad. Now, if they refuse you, there's ways to battle that. So you could use a disclaimer to say, hey, I'm not going to stop anybody else from using STEMinist apart from my mark. You could, if you're using it long enough, you can do a supplemental mark. So more than 5 years, you can say, okay, cool, like I understand that this is a geographic term or this is too common, but people know me for using it because I've been using it a long time. So there are ways to fight back. And they usually say it at the bottom, but they didn't like give this person that kind of feedback. So they were probably having a bad day.
I feel like this person probably would have been like, no, I want to be the only person.
Yeah.
So
well, they wouldn't have been able to disclaim it because it's the only word. So if it's the only word, you can't disclaim it, then there's nothing left. But you could disclaim it in your situation because you have 2 words.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
the second word gives you a little bit more latitude. So to
Oh,
speak.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So
I'm glad that
OnRamp exclusives.
OnRamp exclusive. You just got an OnRamp exclusive. A whole lesson in trademark law from my guy. I gotta send him a couple searches later on for him to do for me. So
yeah,
this is
for
great.
sure.
This is great, Dom. We're after our session, then we have small business roundtable. So there's more conversations around, people kind of exploring their ideas and problem solving some issues that they may have in their business. And so I want to just can we just give Dom a big some claps up, some thumbs up, some cheers in the chat, and just thank him for his time. This was amazing. Got some really incredible information here. His Dom, if you could put your contact information in the chat, so if anybody wants to reach out to you, they can reach out to you directly to get any more of those
Yeah,
high level questions asked and answered.
I just sent everybody an email that put their emails in the chat earlier. But
Okay.
here goes if you came in late, here goes my email.
Mm.
You can just email me straight to dlander@cgmphilly.com. And yeah, I love doing this. I love talking about business. Love like working with great people like you guys. So very, very honored to be a part of today's session. And don't talk bad about me next week. When the next lesson comes on.
All right, Dom. Thank you so much. I'm gonna hand it back to Angela.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
That's great.
Thanks. It's great.
See you.